Hello and welcome to the Crystal Palace podcast. I'm Alfonso Greenbrook and today in pod 3 I'll be looking over the result over West Brom by bringing you my match review, player rankings and my man of match. As well as this, I'm also going to be bringing you an exclusive interview with Alan Pardew and Mile Jedinak after the game. So let's begin. Palace's Premier League campaign got off to a bad start as they narrowly lost 1-0 to West Brom at Selhurst Park. The Eagles, who have still not won any of their opening home games in the Premier League, were consigned to defeat by Summian Rondon's 74th minute header from a James McLean free kick, and Alan Pardew's men couldn't muster up a response in the remaining time. Wilfried Zaha and Andros Townsend had the best of chances for the hosts, with Ben Foster making a couple of good saves to deny the former. But the opening day would end in defeat for those in red and blue. The first real action of the game at Selhurst Park saw Wayne Hennessy called into action after just 8 minutes. Craig Gardner curled an inviting cross into the box from the left, and Rondon attempted to divert a header into the far corner, but the Welshman continued his good form from Euro 2016 by springing to his left and clawing the attempt away from his line. Connor Wickham, fresh from scoring twice against Valencia a week before, nearly continued his good form by trying to score from a flick-on from debutant Andros Townsend's free kick, but it blew wide, and then Cedro Berahino was next to try an aerial route to goal, but he could only guide a powerful cross by Rondon well past the post. There had been little attacking threat from the hosts in the opening 20 minutes, but they showed they were capable of suddenly bursting forward into life when a neat one-touch pass move saw Mile Jedinak of all people bursting down the wing, and he put in a fine low cross for Wickham, who took a touch in the box before he screwed it awkwardly off target. However, there was little else of note to report for the remainder of the first half, as both teams struggled to create any clear-cut chances, and the final opportunity of the half, first 45 minutes, saw Rondon nod harmlessly wide as a quiet first half came to a close. But the real excitement came 6 minutes after the restart. Wilfried Zaha was played through on the goal, but he took the ball too close to Ben Foster, who managed to block his initial attempt, and after the winger got a second bite, he turned and shot goalwards, but once again the former England goalkeeper managed to get something on it, and West Brom scrambled it clear. Fans got a glimpse of why the club paid £30 million for Townsend over the summer, when he cut inside from the left and dribbled past a couple of Albion players, before finding Jason Puncheon with a good pass. The Croydon native managed to get the ball under control and take aim, but his straight shot was comfortable for Forster. A few minutes later, hearts were in mouths around the nervous Selhurst Park on the hour mark, when the Baggies invited a goal-mouth scramble that saw Claudio Jakob try his luck twice. The first was blocked by a number of bodies in front of him before the Argentine curled the rebound wide, but Palace was soon back on the front foot, and Andros Townsend saw a blast from the edge of the box zip over the angle of the post and bar. Suddenly, a game had broken out, and Jonas Oslu rippled the top of the net with a header from another fine Gardner delivery, and Hennessy got his body behind a fizzling dive from Berahino as the game entered the final 20 minutes. However, the visitors made their pressure tells us they got themselves in front, once again via an aerial attack. McLean had replaced Gardner a few minutes before, but the quality of set pieces didn't suffer. Another fine cross by the Republic of Ireland international was flicked into the net by the head of Rondon to hand Tony Pulis' men the lead. They nearly extended their advantage when winger Matt Phillips pulled an effort wide after an impressive Rondon produced some nice hold-up play, but a resilient rearguard prevented the Eagles from creating anything else of note, with Townsend seeing a grass cut-up from the edge of the box, and a last-gasp free kick failed to test Forster, as the Eagles were left empty-handed on day one. So as you heard there, that was my match review of the game. a sort of summary of the game as such. And now I'm going to move on to sort of player rankings. But before I do that, I've started to do this more as the season go on, and I started it last season. Instead of me just going straight into player rankings, I'm now going to try and sort of give you positive, negatives from the game. And I have written up a little sort of paragraph of positives and negatives, which I'm going to tell you. And you can comment below whether you agree with the positives, whether you disagree with what I said. And the same really goes for the negatives. And before we do start with giving you the positives and negatives, I would just like to say, if you are using social media, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, where you can join in with the discussion. And especially if you are on Facebook, join the Facebook group, because there are a lot of fans on there having discussions about the game. So if you're on Facebook, Twitter, any of these social medias, get involved with us at eCrystalPalace, so you can join in with the conversation. But now back on to the positives. I'm going to just read out it. I'm not really going to go into much detail, because you can probably guess from what I'm saying what it's all about. But I'm going to read these paragraphs. So Chung-Yong Lee played in a centre attacking role and created Palace's best chance with a through ball to Wilfried Zaha that the winger missed. If it can be considered a positive, the game showed just how badly Palace need reinforcements in attack. And I will stop there. I'm just saying that as I'm recording this, Yannick Bolasie has left the club at Everton for a fee of around £25 to £30 million. And apparently Christian Benteke may be happening and should be. And there's another winger, I believe, from a sort of championships club, who's an English winger, very young, very good, and we're linked with him for about £6 million. So I don't know what's going to happen here, but them sort of few players do look pretty promising. So me to continue again. Saturday's defeat may just give the board and manager the influence they need to complete the rumored transfer deals for Christian Benteke and Sadio Berahino next week. So they were the positives. Obviously, you can guess that a player like Lee Chung-Yong doesn't normally play well, but did play well when he wasn't playing on the wing. Instead, he was playing down the middle, and he supplied a lot of our chances. But the main thing to focus on is just how badly it highlights the fact that we need a striker, whether it be Christian Benteke, Sadio Berahino, this guy who I was going to say Middlesbrough, but he's not from Middlesbrough, he's from another club. Whether it be him, Rob Sukanu, Andy Carroll, any of these players, we need someone to come in, because that's what we lack. Now, obviously, for the negatives, and obviously in a loss, there are a lot of negatives, but I've managed to get just a paragraph to explain that. The lack of a cutting edge in the squad is alarming. Palace were limited to a few opportunities, and those that were presented weren't taken well. Much like the second half of the season, a failure to take advantage of dominant play cost Palace, and just like last season, that failure was punished by the opposition scoring in the latter stages. More needs to be done in the transfer market if the club are to avoid getting dragged into another mid to lower table drop. So there you go, that was my negatives. Obviously, like I said, I'm not really going to explain it more, but the main thing is we need to get a striker, because it just shows that we're not playing well because we haven't got someone to score goals for us. And I think one of the things we need to do is that we dominate play. We're really good with possession, but we need to use it more. Whether that will be just passing it more, maybe it will be just waiting, holding up the ball for players to push forward. Whatever it needs to be, whatever it is, we need to do it. And personally, I think that that's what was missing. We were just going forward, doing long balls, doing crosses to Wickham, but that wasn't good enough. All we need to do, I personally think, is just hold up the ball, wait for players to get forward, so there are loads of players in the box, and that way find a pass rather than crossing it, and a cross that could be headed away by a defender. But enough of that. I'm now going to move on to giving you the player rankings, and these are the sort of things that I want you guys to comment on. So if you do disagree or do agree with what I say, do drop a comment below the video, and if you want, just give me a list of all the players that played and just give them ratings out of 10, because, you know, that way we can compare my own opinion and yours. Now, obviously, this was a defeat. I'm not really in a good mood about it, so I'm not really going to go into too much detail, because it is really annoying, the fact that the lack and sort of bad, I know badness isn't the word, but the badness of the tactics used. But I'll start with Wayne Hennessy, and I'm going to give him a 7. Made an excellent save late in the first half to prevent what looked like to be a certain goal. There was nothing he could do about the impressive goal and header from Samuel Rondon. So Hennessy had a pretty decent game, made a few decent saves, few catches from corners, another lovely punch he made. in the second half, but obviously there was nothing you could do about the goal from Rondon. A really good goal. Some may say he could have moved slightly to the right, but I'm not going to criticise him for that, because overall a pretty good performance. Now for Joe Ward, I am going to give him a 5. Up against Matt Phillips and Sergio Berahino, Ward struggled to gain control of the wing pair in the first half, especially Pulis. Pulis streamed susceptible to crosses, and Ward was at fault for a number of those. He needed more support from Zaha and Andros Townsend, but better communication might have helped. So a thing there is, obviously Joe Ward isn't the fastest player, so when you've got someone like Matt Phillips and Sergio Berahino running against you, you're going to find it quite difficult, and that's something we saw last season, which is fine. But the fact is, he could have tried to do better with blocks from crosses. He could have tried to track players more to stop them crossing. But I think the main thing that would have bettered his performance is the fact that if he communicated more with the likes of Zaha and Andros Townsend. And, you know, yes, he played with Zaha last season and they had quite a good partnership. But Townsend has come in, and although Townsend is a class player, he probably would have been better if he was supplied more by Ward if they were communicating. And I think if he communicated more, players around him and all players in the squad, if they communicate, they will work well together, gel well together, and that way it would be an all better round thing. And that's what I think we need. We need the leaders like Dan, Delaney, maybe Wickham to an extent, and Punchin, who did play, to command people so they know what we're doing. We did look a bit lost in the game against West Brom, and I think that's what lost us the game. The fact that people didn't really know what they were doing, the fact that they were just playing as single players. What they need to do, we need to go back in, reorganise, and actually get us to work once again more as a team. Now to move on to Damien Delaney, I'm going to give him a 5. Whether it's a tactical instruction or a personal intention, the number of aimless long passes to the closely marked corner Wickham did little to aim Palace in their attempts to break West Brom down. Defensively, he done what was necessary, and it's his distribution that let him down. So Damien Delaney, I think personally it's an instruction from Pardew that because we haven't really got that much class in midfield at the minute, the likes of McCarthy and Kabay, I think he's just been instructed to cross the ball to Wickham, which is fine because Wickham is a very good player at headering goals in, and we've seen that last season. But the thing is, if you've got two massive defenders that West Brom have and he's jumping for the ball, there's no way he's going to get it because they're going to power him up, push him off the ball and head the ball away. So what we should try and do, and I've already discussed this already, is rather than just going on the counter, crossing the ball in, which is a good tactic if we've got, you know, defenders who are not very good in the air. But what we need to try and do at the minute is instead of just crossing the ball in, we should get a run, someone hold up the ball so 3 or 4 players can get up into the field, into the box. And instead of doing a cross, maybe just do a little chip ball or maybe just a low pass so they can get the ball, turn around or whatever, do in the box and score. So personally, rather than crossing the ball, we should do that. And yes, it's a bit old school. It's a bit not very exciting, the fact that you're crossing in and running with it. But if that can get us goals by just doing simple passing, I'm sure that would be better. And, you know, his distribution needs to be slightly better, you know, with his passing and the crossing. He just needs to try and be more accurate. Because if he is going to do long passes, he's just going to make sure that they're accurate. But other than that, as a defender, he done a very class job. Now to move on to Scott Dan, the new captain, and I am going to give him a 6. Played the role of captain with professionalism. A player who makes defensive work look easy. He did everything that was required against Rondon's physical presence. So Scott Dan recently made Scott the captain of Crystal Palace. A very good decision in my opinion, because out of the players who are very good leaders in the squad, he is the one most likely to start. But, you know, he'd done that very well. He was very professional about the job and he'd done it well. And people said he was a bit aggressive towards maybe Townsend and Zaha with that in the game. But at the end of the day, as the captain, you've got to make sure people are in their place. And yes, it wasn't really a good performance for us. And yes, Townsend was pretty good within the game. But, you know, as a captain, you've got to make sure everyone is giving 100%. And he's done that well. So people may think he's aggressive, but I think actually he was very good. Obviously, he done the defensive work very well. And as for, you know, Rondon, he kept control of him. He got rid of his physical presence. But obviously, couldn't have done much more with the goal because it was a good cross and a good header. But personally, looking back at the goal, normally our defenders would have headed that away. So I don't know whether it was just a bit of confusion and miscommunication. But in the future, or last season especially, when crosses like that were coming in, our defenders would beat everyone and jump up and head them away. So I don't know what's happened with our aerial presence, but hopefully it can improve. Now to move on to Papa Soare, I'm going to give him a 5. Like Ward, Soare toyed a bit against West Brom's wingers and allowed far too many crosses into the box unchallenged. There were also a few occasions where he nearly got caught in possession when a simple pass would have been sufficed. So Papa Soare, he has come back from a little niggly injury and he did get taken off towards the end of the game with a hamstring problem. So hopefully he's okay. But, if you just come back from a little injury, a little blip, you're not going to be 100%. And that was clear with Soare. But like Ward, once again, he's normally very good at stretching out his leg and blocking a cross, which he done on a few occasions, but he didn't do it to the best of his ability or like what he would normally do. And also, there's a few times where, yes, we know Papa Soare's got a fantastic left foot and his crosses are superb, but sometimes, he got caught in position. Maybe, like I said, just a simple pass, just hold up the ball, simple pass, rather than cross him, because I'd rather have protection of the fact that we'll keep possession with a simple pass than if we get a cross and it may 50-50 may work or not. But certainly, considering he's injured or was playing injured, he's still done an alright defensive thing and he did make a few decent tackles throughout the game. Now for Jason Puncheon, I am going to give him a 6. Playing a deeper role, Puncheon's ability to open up opposition's defences seemed to be neglected by an instruction to sit further back. Took set pieces with a bit more pace, but seemed to be absent whenever there was an opportunity to take a direct free kick. All in all, it was a disappointing for a player who had a decent scoring record when it comes to that in the past. So Puncheon, I've rightly given him a 6, because although he was playing a defensive role where he isn't really that good, whenever he did have the opportunity to get forward, he done it well. He couldn't quite unlock the defences of West Brom, but he did have a few good, decent passes throughout the game. And yes, where he's playing defensive, yes, that isn't ideal, but certainly next to Lee Chung-Yong, he done that very well. Just staying back slightly, he done that very well in the fact that he was still able to run back, tackle, all of that stuff. But certainly, for a few of the free kicks in the game, rather than Andros Townsend taking them, which I know he did score against us last season with a free kick, and he is very good at him, but maybe we should just go back to Puncheon scoring them, because when he scored about 3 or 4 last 2 seasons ago, free kicks, which were very good ones against the likes of Man City, etc. So I don't see why he's doing it. And with the like of Cabaye came in, and Cabaye took them. So I don't see why Puncheon shouldn't go back to what he used to do, which he used to do very well. So I would like to see him take the free kick, because I reckon a few of these free kicks in the game he probably could have done. But it was slightly disappointing for him, but then I can't really blame him that much because he was playing deeper and he wasn't able to get forward as much. Now to move on to a rock in the defence and the midfield, and the ex-captain of Crystal Palace, who I'm sad to say may be leaving the club to go to Aston Villa, and that is Mile Jedinak. And I'm going to give Mile Jedinak a 7. For a player linked with a move away from the club, Jedinak showed the temperament and dependency that would be a credit to whichever club he's destined to join. Whilst his passing is perhaps his greatest weakness, his defensive work made the jobs of Puncheon and Lee easier. So obviously, Mile Jedinak, he's linked with a move away from the club, but that didn't stop his mentality, his eye for the game, and just his sort of look upon the game, because he done a fantastic performance. Yes, we lost, but that was by a free kick. He couldn't really have done anything about that. But throughout the game, whenever West Brom came on the attack, he was able to do very good defensive work. And obviously, because he was so good doing the defensive work, it meant that Puncheon and Lee could go further forward and obviously do their jobs. And yes, his passing isn't good, but he could still do a simple pass, which I personally think is what we need. But you know what? It didn't show the fact that he's linked with a move away from the club. He put so much passion into it. He threw his shirt into the crowd after the game. And, it just shows how passionate he was about the game, about Palace. But, it just highlights the fact that he was a really good performance, and he was just acknowledging to the fans that, yes, it was a good performance, but, we were unlucky not to get something from it. But certainly a very good defensive job work from Mile Jedinak. Now to move on to his fellow partner, or maybe attacking midfielder, whichever way you look at it, and that is Lee Chung-Yong, and I am going to give Lee Chung-Yong an 8. This was Lee's first opportunity to play in a central role, having previously only featured on the wing for the club, and he took it in his stride. Fitting across the midfield, Lee provided options where others weren't available. He also created the only major opening for Palace in the second half, with a deft tackle and a pass to the feet of Zaha, who failed to take advantage. So Lee Chung-Yong, in most people's eyes, the man of the match, but certainly he had a very good game. He normally plays in the wing, and where he isn't too fast and his crossing isn't that good, he hasn't really fitted into that role. But now, having seen him play central, I can see why Palace brought him into the club, because the amount of runs he made, the tackles he made, the fact that he was able to get forward and find a pass was superb. And, you know, I think that if, yes, Bolasie's left, but certainly Lee Chung-Yong, if he moves into that position, I can certainly see that Townsend, Zaha playing on the wings, with Lee Chung-Yong down the middle, with that person who's able to find a pass to supply them, as well as shifting in defensive work by making tackles. But certainly, in the game, he was the only person who really created the opportunity, and that was for Zaha. And yes, he made a good tackle, made the pass to Zaha. Zaha couldn't quite take the opportunity, but certainly the fact that we've got a player now who can play both in the wing but in the middle, but can supply opportunities, is better. And if he can continue to do that, supply the ball, I'm sure that he'll get into the side more often. So now to move on to Wilfried Zaha. Now this is a very long thing, because there was a lot of things good about his performance, and loads of things that are not so good about his performance. There's a lot to say, but he did have a decent game, so I'm going to give him a 6. West Brom play with 4 centre-backs across their back line, and all the way they worked together to make it incredibly difficult to break down. Zaha had the beating of his marker Johnny Evans on a number of occasions, but failed to make better use of the openings with deliveries that just didn't hit their mark. Palace's only genuine opportunity fell to Zaha, who ran at the goal only to shoot straight at Ben Foster. The rebound fell to him again, and he perhaps should have looked for a pass. Instead, his second shot was blocked off the line by defenders. So Zaha, he was possibly, other than Townsend, our best attacking threat throughout the game. You know, he kept running at defenders when he had the ball. He would try and do crosses, which obviously didn't go to plan because they got blocked by West Brom defenders. But also, you know, he obviously was getting man-marked by 2 people. So, of course, he wasn't able to do much. But certainly, when he did have the ball, he could have done better with it, but he's still done a good enough thing to have created a chance if it had gone right for him. But, you know, with the thing with Lee Chung-Yong, he gave the ball to Zaha. Zaha had a shot. Yes, it got deflected again. What he should have done, Wickham was in space. He should have passed it to Wickham, and then Wickham blasted it into the right-hand corner, and we would have been 1-0 up at that point. So if he had, rather than going for glory, had found that simple pass to Wickham, Wickham could have blasted it, and you see on the replays, Wickham was calling it. He could have given it to Wickham, and Wickham could have shot it in goal. But, you know, perhaps he should have done better with it and looked for the pass instead. But certainly, you know, it's very hard for a winger to play well when there's 2 people marking him and 4 centre-backs rather than 2 centre-backs and 2 full-backs. But, you know, he should have made better from these opportunities. But certainly, he's after pre-season, he's just getting back to what he was the end of last season. So now to go on to the forward, Connor Wickham. I'm going to give him a 5. Desperately tried to lead the line, but struggled against West Brom's defensive unit. Had an opportunity to score in the first half from a Jedinak cross, but his snapshot went wide. If Palace are too persistent with Wickham up front, he must get better quality service. So, to be honest, there's nothing really to highlight about Wickham other than that missed from Jedinak. Maybe, yes, there was a defender chasing him down, but I personally think if Wickham had stopped there, just done a little simple spin around, thought about it, took a few seconds to think about it, and then had a shot, it probably would have gone in. But the fact that he got it one touch and blasted it, it went just wide. So maybe if he had thought about that differently, it would have been a different outcome. But certainly, you know, Wickham is a very good player, don't deny it. And yes, he may not be a 20-goal-a-season person, but certainly if we can supply him, he can score 15 goals. He proved that with the 6 goals he scored last season. But if we're not able to supply him properly, then there's no point of us having him up top, because he can do well if we supply him with crosses. But the fact that players are now doubling up on our wingers, it means that they can't cross to him. And I think that because they can't cross, we need to try something different. But Pardew isn't doing something different. Instead, what's he doing? He's getting players like Delaney and Dan to do long balls to him, which is even worse because the defenders just muscle him out and head it away. What we need to be trying to do, if our attackers can't cross it into him, is, like I said, just do simple passing. So he's in the box, just do a little chip ball over the top in the middle, and then that way we've got more of a chance of doing it. Because with our crosses, they're either going to get blocked or the player can't actually make a cross. So instead of doing long balls, which are going to go nowhere, and crosses, which are probably going to get blocked or may connect to him, we just need to think about doing something simple. And that's, for me personally, when you look at football teams, yes, it's nice to see an attacking team, and we don't want to be boring like Pulis, but we've got to try and do something in the middle where we keep it simple but still have a bit of an attacking, really fruitful, let's say, feel to the team. But certainly, if we can supply Wickham properly without doing long balls and crosses, just keep it simple with little chip balls or little passes, I'm sure he can score loads of goals. And that's what was missing in the game. There was no point of putting Wickham up there if there was no way you were going to supply him. But now to move on to one of the other candidates for the Man of the Match award, and that is Andros Townsend. Joined the club for £30 million, and he was showed a glimpse of why he's worth that. But I am going to give him a 7. Quick, direct and skillful. Townsend's performance was just a sample of what a fully integrated, fit player will provide to the side. While he didn't find the openings he sought, he did take shots at goal that other players didn't have the confidence to take. So, obviously, we know he's quick, we know he's direct, we know he's skillful, so he can do all these things. But you know what? It showed that how he's integrated straight into a team. It's not like he had to get experience, like he had to fit the team. He came in straight away, and he was like he was always here. You know, he fit in the team very well. And he did very well in the game. And obviously, he did take loads of shots, which no other player would try and do other than punching. Ones from about 20 yards, he would have a shot. Obviously, a few of them went wide, but a few of them were very good shots and just got saved by Forster. But, you know, certainly a good game from him. He's showing why he's worth that money. The fact that he's quick, he can run down plays, he can dribble inside. He can also put in a decent cross. And also, he's just very skillful. You know, he has the ball, he can look around him and have quick reactions to see whether, using his skill, whether to pass it, whether to dribble more. And he uses that skill to sort of help him get along with the game. But you know what? You know, if we can keep him fit this season, certainly he will provide a lot to the team. And, you know, he was on free kicks, and I know, yes, he scored a few last season. But personally, I would not put him on the free kicks, only because we've got someone like Punchin who has the proven record of scoring 4 free kicks in the season. So we should have given it to him so he could have done it. And maybe Townsend could go into the box and header it in. But certainly, one of our best players, the one had the best attacking threat, the one with the skill. He was very direct with his passing and also got back doing defensive work. And, you know, if it weren't for him, we all have had absolutely no attacking edge whatsoever. But certainly, very good performance from him. Now to move on to the substitutions. So the substitutions were Yannick Bolasie, Yohan Cabaye and Martin Kelly. So 2 of the substitutions, Yohan Cabaye and Martin Kelly, there's no rating for them because they only came on sort of for the last 10 minutes. But obviously Martin Kelly came on for the injured Suarez, so there's nothing. He only came on for about 2 minutes. And then obviously Yohan Cabaye, he's still getting back to fitness, but I personally think, looking at his performance, he looked fitter. He looked as fit as some of the players playing, because it was as if he had played all pre-season, whereas he's only played 1 game in pre-season. So I think the next game against Tottenham, Yohan Cabaye should start, only because, although he's missed all the pre-season, because of him being on holiday, he's come back into the team as if he's been fully fit. And I think the fact that he went to the Euros has really helped him. And he was actually, for stats-wise, statistics-wise, he was one of the best defensive midfielders at the Euros. But certainly brought a calming influence to the midfield, and he did help the hosts, obviously Palace, retain the ball better. But like the rest of the squad, he couldn't unlock West Brom's side, and that's because West Brom parked the bus, 4 defenders, 2 defensive midfielders, stay back really far back, and he couldn't really unlock that. But certainly, if Jedinak stays, I pray to God he does, Yohan Cabaye could partner with him whilst we wait for James McArthur to come back to fitness. But certainly, he came onto the pitch, added a bit more calmer effect to the team, and maybe if he had been in the team before, he would have added a little bit more energy, a little bit more creativity, and we could have done something more with this. Now for the player who's moved to Everton, Yannick Bolasie, moved to Everton for a fee that is believed to be £25 to £30 million. It's undisclosed because they won't tell us, obviously. But certainly, with that money, we need to buy a striker, whether it be Berahino, Benteke, this guy from the Championship, English winger who looks fantastic from what I've heard and seen, or maybe it's like Sissoko from Newcastle, a person who could play striker, centre attacking mid, winger. And we need a player like that to come into the squad, and also Wilfred Bonny or Silami. But certainly these players need to come into the squad. But Yannick Bolasie, gone to Everton, and if it is £30 million, then wow, because considering he's a club, well, I wouldn't say he's a club legend, but he's a player that's been at the club for a long time. He's a fan's favourite. He's scored not a lot of goals, but he's scored crucial goals. He's also done loads of crosses, and we loved his unpredictability. But obviously, he's now gone to Everton. I wish him the best of luck, even though I really, really don't like the fact that the club has decided to sell him. But I suppose if someone does come and offer you £30 million for a player, you're probably going to have to let him go. But I am just going to read this little thing on him. There isn't really just much to discuss about him, because really, at the minute, it's a really sour topic to talk about. But brought on by Alan Pardew in an attempt to take the game to West Brom, his directness certainly gave the squad a bit more attacking edge, which have resulted in a free kick just on the edge of the area. That was a highlight of his brief time on the pitch. So obviously we've sold this player, but certainly he had a massive influence on the game, whether it be he started or coming off the bench. He had a massive influence on the game and helped us to have a much more attacking threat. And I think it was almost guaranteed that he was going to leave before the Everton game, and Alan Pardew did say that before the game in his pre-match press conference. But certainly should have won a penalty, in my opinion, because he did get taken down in the box, but he didn't get given the penalty. And maybe if he had won that penalty, and maybe they would have let him or Wickham score it, I'm sure that he may have decided to disagree or to recline the personal terms, and maybe he would have stayed at Palace. But it's all right saying if, but now he's gone to Everton. I wish him the best of luck, but certainly very disappointing from him. But certainly, now that concludes all of my player rankings. I'm now going to move on to the Man of the Match award. But certainly, a game that was very bad for Palace in the fact that we didn't look very good. We didn't look up to scratch. We looked lost at times. But certainly, a few players, star players, shone above each other. And that's what we need. We need leaders at this difficult time. And if it doesn't improve, I'm sorry, but Alan Pardew will have to go, because he hasn't got a plan B. He keeps playing the same formation. I personally think for him, the fact that he tried something new in pre-season, which was the 3-5-2, that worked very well. And if you're not going to supply Wickham very well, then you might as well play with two strikers. In that way, you've got double the amount of people up front to score goals and to supply the ball to. But also with the loads of people in the midfield, you're able to overload the midfield, win possession, and that way you could easily find a pass. But seriously, we need to rethink our tactics so that we can start winning games. And certainly I think that's the way to do it. But certainly there were some starlet performances from everyone during this game. So now I'm going to move on to the Man of the Match award, and obviously where I've had a transition from my old channel and obviously my old podcast to this new podcast for Crystal Palace, I do still use my old Twitter account called the CPFC Podcast, and you can follow that on Twitter, obviously, at the CPFC Podcast. And I do a few polls in there, and obviously one of them was the Man of the Match poll. So before I go into detail about who I thought was Man of the Match, I'm just going to give you the results of who people voted for the Man of the Match award. So in last place with 3% of the votes was Wilfried Zaha. In third place with 28% of the votes was Andros Townsend. Then this was very close, but it's hard to call. But in 34th place, in second place with 34% of the votes was Chung-Yong Lee, which means that with 35% of the votes, and the winner of the Man of the Match award versus West Brom, if anyone does deserve it, and which these people do, but is Mile Jedinak. So congratulations to Mile. Even if you do leave the club, you have been a massive servant to the club, and I do wish you luck if you do move on. But certainly a very solid performance from you, and I would give you a trophy, but I don't have any trophies or certificates for the podcast, so you'll just have to accept my sincere congratulations. But certainly, out of these players, I probably would have gone for Mile Jedinak, only because Mile Jedinak, he was a rock in defence. He was very vocal about the games. He was able even a few times to run down the wing, supply a few crosses, find a few passes and play very well. But certainly Lee Chung-Yong very close behind. Instead of playing on the wing, he played quite central, and that was, I think, is his preferred position. He played very well. He was able to make a few runs, supply a few of our attacks, also got back and done defensive work as well. Andros Townsend, well, what else is there to say? He was the best attacking threat. So that's why he was on my shortlist. He had a few decent crosses, a few decent shots from about 20 yards, and also a few decent free kicks. And obviously Wilfried Zaha, the reason I put him on this, because I would have put 3, but, there's 4 maximum, so I'll put Wilfried Zaha on there. because although he did have his bad things during the game, he did certainly have very good things during the game, as if that at some parts he was the best attacking threat, and he done as best as he could to try and get past the two people marking him. Also, he put on a few decent crosses, but certainly when it came to that opportunity, he should have done better and find the pass. And if he did find the pass and scored, certainly he would be a man of the match, because that would have added to the successful things he'd done throughout the game. So they're basically my man of the match awarded. But if you do want to get involved, do go on to my old Twitter at the C50 podcast, where you can vote in the man of the match polls. So there you have it. That was my podcast review. Now we're going to listen to the exclusive interviews with Alan Pardew and Mila Jedinak after the game.
Alan, can we get your thoughts on a very narrow defeat for your side today?
Yeah, well, I think it's a reflection of perhaps where we are, really. We need a little bit more edge up the top of the pitch. We've said that from the defeat at Man United in the final. We need a little bit more goal-scoring quality, and we need to make sure we bring them in. But we're working tremendously hard to do that, and hopefully we will.
The best chance for Palace today fell to Wilf Zaha. Would you have expected him to slot that one in when he was through?
Well, that's the area that he needs to improve on. There's no doubt about that. It's a fantastic chance. I think the keeper's done well, actually, but having said that, Wilf's, got to learn to put those away. And of course, if we score first today, I think we win. It was that kind of game. The fans here know what Tony's teams are about, because he's been here. They defend in numbers, they don't give you no space, and set plays, they're a threat. So it was a carbon copy win for West Brom. And we can only say that, for us, it was a lack of imagination, lack of craft, lack of threat on their goal. That is evident from the back end of last year, and we need to put it right.
Johan Cabaye got some minutes today. Are there a few players like him and Joe Ledley that are nearly back to fitness?
They're all going to play up at Monday at Nottingham, and I'll get a more of a reflection of where they're at, because it's difficult to tell. They haven't had a lot of time of holiday, but we're asking these guys to go into a tough Premier League season on the back of about 4 or 5 weeks holiday, and a pre-season of about 2 weeks. So we can't expect Joe Ledley and Yo to be, right firing on all cylinders, and Steve Mandela. We went with Wayne today, and I thought we did okay, but it's tough for them. But listen, it's a disappointing day for us, disappointing for our fans. I thought they tried everything for us today, but we just didn't give them enough excitement. We couldn't have had a worse fixture. I think we probably knew that, knowing how Tony plays. But perhaps we could have done a little bit better than we did.
Mila, a tight game today. It's always hard going 1-0 down against Tony Pulis' side.
Yeah, I thought, obviously that there wasn't too many chances in the game. We had a good one in the second half with Wilfred. It was unlucky. Keeper pulled off a good save. But then again, you know that if you give sort of too many set pieces away, that's what they bank on. They took their opportunity and seen the game out. Just disappointing not to start the season the way that we planned.
What was it like in the midfield? There some tough battles.
Obviously, it's going to be tough. You know what to expect with them. They're always going to throw themselves about, not only in the middle but around the whole pitch, and they didn't disappoint in that regard. So we had to counteract that and try and play through them at times, and we did it well in patches, but probably not over the full 90 minutes, and that's why maybe we got the result the way it was.
There's a penalty appeal for the foul on Bolasie. What's everyone's thoughts on that?
I don't know. Obviously the ref didn't give it, so it's hard for me to comment on it. I guess if he gives it, he gives it. And I didn't know. I didn't really see too much. I didn't really see it the best, so I can't comment on it.
Is the manager asking the team to play in a different way at all this season?
No, I don't think so. I think it's he's encouraging us to play out from the back and play through the lines, and even when if it's on to play the longer ball to Connor or to the wingers to try that, and we knew that they like to squeeze the pitch today, and we were supposed to try and get it out as quick as possible to the wide men and try and isolate their fullbacks one-on-one, and we did it good in patches, and they're obviously well drilled, and they did double up on the wingers quite a bit, but yeah, I don't think too much has changed.
So there you have it. Now you've heard what Alan Pardew and Emilia Jedinak had to say. That concludes this week's podcast of the game against West Brom Albion. But make sure to come out next week for my match review of Crystal Palace versus Tottenham, or Tottenham Hotspur versus Crystal Palace if you want to be pedantic like that. So thanks for watching, and remember to up the Palace.